never quit something when you're in a real low moment. It's better to, and you said this in your piece, that after the pandemic, you want to see the program back to a good level before you decided to change and leave. And that, I think, is a far smarter way of doing things, that you leave when you're feeling actually quite good about things. And that decision is probably more balanced than when you're feeling at your worst. Barry,
well, thanks.
We're back again. And this time it's your turn to put me in the hot seat. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And we had a great discussion last week. So over to you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for giving me a chance to interview you as well. Obviously, with your distinguished career, track record of working with players, athletes, and now going into your new working chapter, I'm absolutely fascinated. But just going back for the first question, what advice would you give to your younger self setting out on your career, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the first one would have been to try to analyze and see what to focus on that's going to move the dial. Because I wasted so much energy on, things that didn't matter, almost sometimes getting involved in things that really I had no business in getting involved in. So, I have a tremendous, I think, sense of fairness, which most people have. And then you can get caught up in seeing something that you perceive to be unfair and maybe diving in to try and make it fair. And a lot of that energy was wasted. I'm not saying I didn't learn things from it, but if you focus on the things that are going to move the dial forward, that is a much better use of energy than dissipating so much of your energy on peripheral stuff that doesn't really make a difference. And the other thing is, when I was young, which was part of the drive, but I truly believed that I could kind of motivate, inspire, and change, any player and make them have a desire and ignite something in them. And that basically I could change people. And with age and experience, I've now learned that basically as a coach, the way you can influence people is by being almost like a buffet, and you're offering all of these different choices to the player or the client and see what they choose. Because what they choose is very revealing to the kind of person that they are and the ambitions that they have. And those who continually choose things that show less ambition or whatever, you're not going to alter that because they're making these choices. And you can only ask some questions and try to influence their thinking. But it doesn't matter how talented they are. If they don't really want to do it, they're never going to do it until they want to do it. And I think that's, I now, again, don't waste energy in trying to, change people. I rather spend energy in finding out what they're about and then leaving them with some questions that if they decide to answer them in a different way, then they might be ready for my help then. But at the current place where they're at, they might not be ready for that help. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, nobody can change anybody unless people want to do it for themselves. And the best way forward actually is not trying to force people to do anything, because that's unsustainable in the long term. I do think with young talent, parents do have to force them to, go to their tennis lessons or their football practice and keep them in it long enough for them to find out if they really do like it or not. Because kids are very fickle, and, if they don't feel like doing something, it doesn't mean they don't feel like doing it. It just means they don't feel like doing it today. and so, when kids are younger, you do have to force them into healthy things and stuff that you believe they do like, and see how that pans out. But as they start to get older, they start to understand more for themselves. And I think then you can't force them any longer if it's not what they really want to do. So I think that you can't put a criteria and say at the age of 14 they need to know. I just think you have to kind of go with a gut feeling, and sometimes you need to keep them in something because you can tell emotionally in that they're down, things aren't going well, and the reason they might want to quit is not really the right reason. It's just because of what's happening at that moment, and maybe keep them in the storm long enough for them to come out of that storm. And I'd say this, and this is for anybody: never quit something when you're in a real low moment. It's better to, and you said this in your piece, that after the pandemic, you want to see the program back to a good level before you decided to change and leave. And that, I think, is a far smarter way of doing things, that you leave when you're feeling actually quite good about things, and that decision is probably more balanced than when you're feeling at your worst. So I think, with especially with younger people, you have to try to decide whether they need to ride through the storm or no. It's not just the storm that's pushing them in a different direction. It's something inside them that actually is.
Yeah.
But even then, I'd still say try to get through the storm first, and then say, okay, now
make a decision.
Make a decision.
Good, Dave. Second question. Now you're moving into sort of another chapter now of your career. What one thing do you think you need to improve on now for your business transition at this moment?
Marketing is one. I mean, I'll tell you how bad it can be. I was speaking to one of my sisters the other day, and she didn't even know I had a podcast. And I mean, this has been going on for over 225 weeks. So it's a few years now, and she didn't even know I had one. So clearly marketing is an area that has to improve. But marketing is an interesting one, because even though you have a lot to offer, I've come from a career in tennis where everything was word of mouth. And so I never had to ever kind of go for a job or anything like that. I mean, we had a discussion, and either it was going to work or wasn't going to work. But that was an introduction that we had. So now having, wanting to grow the coaching side of my business, for people's, mindset and helping. And I have a number of clients already. But to grow that means you kind of have to put yourself out there and big yourself up a bit. And that doesn't come naturally to me. And so it's something that I have to really kind of get over that hump and say, you know what, this is what I've done, and this is why I can help you. And I know I can help you because my current clients are doing very well, and my success story behind is is pretty significant.
Yeah, I really interested. I spoke with Alistair Heim about this before when we worked with the momentum stuff. Is that marketing piece? I think that's interesting, and definitely not easy when the work's come to you your whole career so easily. And I think that's part of it. Last question from me, Dave. What piece of advice would you give me? You know, I'm working in a different sphere now. Is there could be a training thing or something I should be doing more of, or any advice you could give me in any sort of sphere?
Yeah, I think there's 2 books that would be helpful to read. I know you like to read. This one, it's a guy called Todd Gongware, and it's Lead for God's Sake, and it's just a story, and so it's an easy read, and it's actually quite a fun story, but there's some really good stuff in there that I think, you know, because I know you've got a lively mind in that, but if you know, something like that. And then there's another book that, and I'll get to the reason why. This won't be a well-known book, but it's called The $1 Million One-Man Empire, a guy called Charlie Hutton. But this is much more about being systematic and, you know, well organized in your business, and some real specific direction that you can take. And I think you're a little bit like me in that, is that being systemized doesn't sit that well, you know, and being very well organized is something that I like, but sometimes find difficult to put together. So, for instance, like, you know, I still have not yet found a groove of exactly how to organize my week. It's getting a little better, but it's not quite there yet. But I do believe that if I can, you know, get to a place where I'm really happy with how that sits, and there are some systems in place that can really help me from not having to search for things like in my computer, you know, the way I've saved things, I'm forever searching for stuff I know I have, and slowly trying to organize that, which is, I've done quite a bit of that now, and it's helped a lot, because I've wasted a lot of time searching for things, for instance, because it's not systemized in the right way. And you know, I don't know for sure, but I think you might be in a similar place. And so, yeah, I'd say, you know, that would be something that maybe you could look at as well. I also don't know, but I think we both maybe need to see what the impact of AI is going to be on everything that we do as well. Yeah. Because that, you know, over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's going to change things quite a lot. And I don't think anybody really knows exactly how. I mean, there's a lot of people out there saying they do, but I'm not sure they do. But I think we've just got to be aware of that, and see, you know, because, you know, my understanding is AI is going to make these systems more and more efficient. And, you know, whilst ours, thankfully, is very much a people's business, I do think that there's got to be stuff behind it that runs very, very smoothly and automatically in a good way to allow us the freedom to have more of the, you know, human interaction. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's the freedom, but also it's the protection. So, for example, we run a lot of timetables across a lot of schools, and, you know, with kids' names, for example, we could put that in, and it could come out with timetables for us that we spend 2 weeks drafting, redrafting, week A, week B, but you've got the kids' names in there, which is obviously safeguarding. So it's the freedom and freedom and efficiency, but also the protection and legality
Yes.
of that AI. And also eventually the cost of rolling it out, maybe not so much for our profession,
Yeah.
but the other professions. If an AI thing is going to come in and build a house, is that going to happen in 2 years or is that going to happen in 20 years? Because the cost of that, and even my brother's a doctor, and robotics can do some of it, but that that AI robot costs an absolute fortune. It's not realistic to roll out yet.
Yeah.
And it can only do half the operation, for example. So I think there's a few pieces there. I think, well, certainly to take on for me, and great, thank you for the books and advice there, but also the AI piece, the efficiency of it. And yeah, there's a few things there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very, very early days. And I don't know yet, but I'm starting to formulate an idea in my head of how this can, and how this is and will impact coaching and how courses are delivered, because I think that will change a lot because of AI.
Yeah. One of the books that I go to a lot, and as when I was looking at the business mindset stuff, was The Go Giver. It's called The Go Giver. I have to get the name for you, but it's about adding value. So where does it add value? The compensation piece is about how many people are you helping in order to then how much money you may receive. And AI again might help you get to more people. It's the influence, your influence piece and sort of how you help others, but also the authenticity and reciprocal of sort of side of business.
Yeah.
So you're giving more in the ultimate end to receive more.
Yeah.
But the authenticity around being honest, who you are, is still the nuances of what we do in coaching people, adding value to organizations. And that still, it was a very good book that had a big impression on me, was The Go Giver.
Yeah. If you can send me the link for that, and I'll send you the link for the other two books, and I'll put them in the show notes. I think trust is huge, in any business, in any team, in any interaction. It's very difficult to work with somebody or interact with somebody if you just don't trust them. And so, authentically, you need to be trustworthy. And I think that's ultimately, everything. If people don't trust you, they're not going to work with you.
Yeah. And often linking in that link of rapport, finding that piece where we connect. I think is that the trust helps when you've got that link, that rapport link somewhere, and you've searched through good questions to find a commonality. I think is very powerful with the team, with people you're working with.
And I think that's where you've got to be very careful with AI, because AI can help a lot, but it can also spew out stuff that, sounds great and everything like that. But I think you can lose some trust if it's not truly your voice. And I think people will feel that. So again, AI is not, I might be totally wrong with this, but I don't think AI is going to replace people at all. I think the people who are going to do best are the ones who use it as an aid to help them get their message out there and organize things in a really good way, and even organize their IP in a good way. But you have to make sure that the trust is there and that people can still feel the human behind it. And if they can't feel that, I think it becomes just,
absolutely,
hot air, really.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Some interesting questions there. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. But it's been absolute pleasure spending time with you again, Barry. And good luck with everything that you do. And I will put those books in the show notes, and everybody can share it. And hopefully everybody's gotten a couple of gems out of what we've spoken about.
A couple of other books I'll send you the links for was Traction, It was a business book, and also The Millionaire Next Door. They're the other two books that made a big impression on me, especially around like sort of
Is that
mid-30s.
Kawasaki, The Millionaire Next Door?
I'll get the names for you. Yeah, I'll get all the names and all the links for you and authors. I would have had those prepared. Sorry, I didn't use them in the podcast.
No, honestly.
Yeah,
just send them through and we'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah. Brilliant, Dave.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for watching Locker Room Power with David Sammel. If you enjoyed the episode, hit subscribe and leave a comment on your favorite platform. See you in the next one.